Hello to anyone that's listening on YouTube land. It's me, yes, the man, the legend, the unfaced, never show my face. I think I mentioned why before. It's because I do other things, and you get some weird people on the internet, as you all know, and so it's best sometimes to keep my different lives separate. So welcome to anyone that's joining, and welcome to those on YouTube that are listening. So as always, you can ask me questions and about paranormal, aliens, Bigfoot, black ops, crop circles, alien abductions, implants, you know, the whole range, Bigfoot, spirits, I don't know, all that kind of stuff. If any of you've already watched any of my videos, you know that I do kind of know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this for 30 plus years, been on a few radio stations, waffling on about the same subject. So I will start talking about something, and then unless someone asks me a question, I will carry on talking until someone asks me a question. So I was just going to talk a bit about the Anunnaki. Yes, it's because I am going through the Anunnaki again at the moment. Like I did say right at the very beginning of all the videos, I will go back around and do everything in more detail. So I'm hoping you're all enjoying the more detail side of it. So I was just going to talk a bit about Murduk. Yes, I know I pronounce his name wrong sometimes. Now, he was the son of Enki and was kind of passed over many a time. Thank you to Jack for saying love the channel. Thank you. He was passed over many a time. And now, I don't know if you've watched my latest videos, but it got to a point in our history. Now, when King Anu finally left the last time he came here, they actually started counting in Earth years instead of their own years, which was Shah's, which is 3,600 years. They started to actually say from the moment the King Anu left, it was 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And that's really good because it helps us know exactly when they were doing things, because it says, you know, in 350 years after it passed, we were doing this, and so on and so forth. I will get to your questions in a sec. I'll just finish off the Murduk thing. So he, Julie's wrote, this is by far my favourite child, bless you. My new best friend now. So Murduk, as we know, has been passed over many a time, and he also got blamed for Dumuzi's death, even though he probably was going to. I don't know. I mean, this is, you know, I wasn't there, but the story goes, you know, in the ancient tablets that Dumuzi had a dream that Murduk sent 7 of his goons to go and kill him. So he left, and deliberately left, obviously, before he got killed, or thought he was going to get killed, and then he accidentally killed himself off of a waterfall. So poor Murduk, if he wasn't sending 7 of his goons, this poor guy got banished, and eventually down the line King Anu pardoned him. And if you watch the very latest video, you realise that he went back to the land he was sort of in charge of prior to being banished, and his brother's there, and they had this 350-year bickering, which didn't help the humans there, and you know the land was just basically destroyed where they weren't doing the things that they were supposed to do in agriculture and irrigation and all this kind of stuff. So, but the reason why I brought up Marduk is there was 4 territories given out to Enlil, Enki, Iana, and the Anunnaki. Now, you can kind of work out where they are from what they're talking about in different languages. So, for example, Iana goes over to... I'll cover this more in videos, but Iana goes to one of the locations. Now, this is after Babel. So, the location, they call her Mars. So, you can work out what, you know, Greeks or Romans or whoever was the ones that called her Mars. So, you know, who has Mars as Aphrodite, or Ishtar as her other name was called. So you can work these things out. Anyway, Murduk wanted all 4 of the territories, and that's where you start getting into these Israelites fighting with the Jericho walls and all this kind of stuff. So I'll be getting to all of that, but I'm not sure if the Bible's got it wrong, but we've got the Israelites. There is an actual group that was called Enlites, which was Enlil's lot. So I don't know. I don't know whether there was another lot later on that was called Israelites, or whether it was Enlilites that they were referring to, but just got it wrong. Okay, I'm just going to go back up and see your messages. Just been listening to Randall Carlson talk about Atlantis. Okay, that's from Peach. What did Randall say? Because when you see my video number 601, if you haven't already heard me mention it once or twice on some live chats, I dig deep, not deep, but I dig enough for the logic to be very, very sound on my take of Atlantis. It's just pure logic, really, but it makes sense, and if it makes sense, it's probably true, as opposed to things that, because I know there's people out there that talk about Atlantis and they had blue beings and there was this, and then there was Lemuria that was fighting them and da-da-da-da-da. But, thank you for the rose, but you have to go by logic. So these blue beings that supposedly were in Atlantis, where's any record of them? It's just hearsay, unfortunately. There's no record. So what I've done in video 601 is I've gone to real records. So I can show you who I believe was in Atlantis. So, I mean, if people shoot me down, fine, I might be wrong, but the logic is absolutely logical. Okay, I'm just scrolling down. I'll read this one out again from Julie. This is by far my favourite channel. Thank you. Just scrolling down again. Oh, there's no more questions. So, the reason why I'm being a bit cagey on the old Atlantis is because I want to make sure people watch it and totally understand the video when it comes out. Thank you for all the hearts, by the way, whoever's doing that. Don't forget to ask me any questions. I know I normally have it up. Thank you, AJ, and I'm terrible at pronunciations, as you all probably know. Anya, I think it is. AJ, Agna. Sorry, yeah, and I've got another laugh out loud +1 from Agna. I don't know. Sometimes it might just even be an abbreviation, so it may not even be a name. Don't forget, normally I put on these videos, ask me a question about paranormal, about aliens, Bigfoots, all that kind of stuff. So Oak has asked, what's a good website to start doing my own reading on these buried histories? There's a book flying in front of me now. It's all going 3D. How far back do you want to go? Because obviously you've got, it can go right back to the very beginning, or it can come back to, fairly recent times, like Roman times and stuff like that. But so if you want to go right back, I will be putting out, someone else asked the question, can you put some links up for things? There's links out there that people have taken from Zachariah Sitchin's book, and they've abbreviated the timeline, and they've kind of added some stuff in there which I wouldn't have agreed with as well. And I think, they've just took it at face value for the first time without, rereading it or re-listening to it if you listen to the audio version of it. So I think some of their things are slightly wrong, only because I've been, like, the last book, the Lost Book of Enki, Tablet 12, I've read probably in the last week and a half. I've probably read it about 7 times because I want to make sure that I've got absolutely everything worked out and stuff. So I don't know if there's a good website that goes back to our buried history. Now, speaking of buried history, I will carry on with your question in a sec. Speaking of buried history, I was thinking, again, because I was rereading Tablet 12, but So basically, the flood came, wiped out Eridu, Sippur, Urdu, but lots of places that the Anunnaki had built in ancient Mesopotamia, which is ancient Iran, that sort of area. Now, if anyone was allowed to go and dig in Eridu, Sippur, all the places, because they rebuilt on top, and sometimes they did actually say that sometimes where they can't build, they found another location. But we know in Eridu, and we know where Eridu is, you could, if you went there with excavation team, dig and find their original buildings, which will solidify 100% that they were there. Now, obviously, they've got the buildings that they built on top, which they talk about in the ancient text. So straight away, we know the texts are real because they have all the locations of all the buildings they were talking about. But if you wanted to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, because if the tablets were fake, which we know they're not, because it's just, if you watch my videos, you know they're not. But if they were faked, they wouldn't know that underneath Eridu, because unless they actually went out and dug it and then found that there was an ancient civilization already under there, ancient buildings, etc. But if they did that, that means someone would have built them anyway. So, sorry, I'm just going around in my own circle here. But the point is, quite easy to find out whether or not there was ancient buildings there if we was allowed to dig, and I'm sure they probably already have, and not told us the answers. And now, going along with that, where they were mining for gold in, I've mentioned this before, but where they were mining for gold in the Abzu, although someone said to me Abzu means black person, but it doesn't. Because there's the description is they mine in Abzu, you can't mine a person. So anyway, miners in the last, I think it's probably 15 years or so, I've heard a few times miners in South Africa mining and coming across various things. In fact, you'll see the stone balls. If you, I don't know if I've done a video on them, but anyway, they've come across other mine shafts while they've dug through, and of course these other mine shafts are ancient and no one else has been there, so it's clearly the Anunnaki's mine shaft that obviously got buried with the Great Flood, which is exactly what they said. So just going back to your website on the histories, I think, to be honest with you, I don't know any decent websites that absolutely lay it all out in one go. I think if you're new to this, go with Zachariah Sitchin's work. Now, I know I'm going to cover old ground here, but some people say he's a Mason and you can't trust his work, but there's other people that's translated the tablets. He didn't hide them or anything like that. So and who's to say the Masons didn't want him to put it out? So regardless of that, his work is fairly accurate. So I would start, if you want to go through the Bible type stuff, go through the Lost Book of Enki. Now you kind of want to go through it in an order because, for example, Gilgamesh didn't come along till a lot later. So try and read them in some sort of order that would help you. So in other words, if you went and read Enki's Enoch's book first, you'd be like, "Well, I don't kind of understand stuff." But really, the easiest one to learn is the book of Enki, Lost Book of Enki first, and then branch off, try and research and see which other ones you want to go after next. AJ has sent an expert ×1. Thank you. I'm not sure what that expert is, but I'm hoping that's you thinking I am. What's T-Cat has wrote, what I've researched so far, we were created by the Anunnaki. Absolutely, yeah, it says it in the tablets. Even mainstream can't deny that there's a missing link. We've got fused chromosomes, and there's a whole range of reasons why we, were genetically created by the Anunnaki. not just to mention the Bible, which is obviously newer than the ancient tablets, but the ancient tablets say it. And, if you subscribe to the fact that there is another planet out there, Nibiru, in fact, just the other day, Sedna, I think it's called. I knew about it ages ago. There's a planet out there that has 11 Sedna. NASA. Just Google Sedna and NASA. It has 11,000-year orbit. So if that's got an 11,000-year orbit, why can't the Anunnaki's Nibiru have a 3,600-year orbit? So it's not, just because it seems a lot to us, it's not a lot in the big scheme of things. When you've got one that's 11,000, and that's factual by NASA, that people can actually, with a certain type of telescope, see. So they're not lying on that. So, so the Anunnaki totally created us. They used Neanderthal. I believe it was. I narrowed it down to Neanderthal. I mean, there was a few others around at the time, but I think it's Neanderthal. Just looking at the DNA patterns of Neanderthal compared to us, compared to Homo florensis, etc. Yes, we ended up breeding with all the other hominids, or pretty much wherever they were all over the world. But the original one was, I think, a Neanderthal. And they used the Neanderthal many times to try and create this human or worker. Really, they didn't know what to call it. They didn't even think of a name at that point. But they used the female Neanderthal each time to try and have a baby, and it failed. And eventually, the sister of Enki, which was Ninshara at the time, that's because they changed their name. So she agreed to have the fetus in her womb and see how it worked, and lo and behold, it worked. So I mean, that's all written in these tablets. And if you've got that sort of information in stone tablets, now there were other tablets. They do talk about other things they wrote about, but unfortunately they're not found, they're buried or destroyed, which is a real shame. Because I know there's hundreds of thousands of these tablets out there, but the ones that's got the juicy stuff, is few and far between, unfortunately. I mean, we're really lucky with the tablets that survived from the Lost Book of Enki tablets. So, and that's why, people say to me, it's a bit luck that those, but if you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, which makes up some of these ancient, books, so we call them books or tablets, but then, obviously the ancient Dead Sea Scrolls were in papyrus, but, they were hidden in a jar. So, it doesn't, if things were hidden for a reason, A, we either find them and that's why they're in such good condition, or B, we don't find them and we never know. Sorry, I'm waffling on there. Oak, after all of that, Oak says more recent would be great. There's me waffling on about the Anunnaki. That's why I always say, try and pinpoint what question you want to ask about anything, whether it's paranormal, aliens, Bigfoot, whatever. I've read a lot of ancient history and civilization theories. Websites on modern ones. I'll do a link because I don't know them off by heart. But I did say to someone else, I'll put a whole links up for people just to go and have a look, because a lot of people were interested in the bloodlines and stuff like that, and they weren't sure where to find them, and the family trees and stuff. So I will do that. I've got other videos, unfortunately, that's already pre-done on my draft folder, so they're going to be released. But once I've done those ones, I'll put the links up. Sorry. So T-Cat wrote, the Anunnaki mixed their genes with the genes of apes, monkeys. Is that correct? No, not monkeys. No, Neanderthal. When you actually read the description of the hominid that they were actually using to make the human, there was monkeys already swinging around in trees and stuff, but this wasn't. They described this as walking on two legs. Now just basically, I'm just I can see there's 23 messages, but yeah, it was not monkeys, which makes sense because we are not as close to monkeys as we think we are. When you realise, if you watch my videos, when you realise that a pig has something like 60 things that's identical to human, whereas a monkey hasn't. In fact, a pig's got a human heart. And the reason why the pig is more identical to us than a monkey, for example, is because back about 9,000 years ago, when they was teaching humans, after the flood, they were teaching the humans laws and all this kind of stuff, and they were setting up these territories. At one point, somewhere, they ran out of food, or was running out of food, and so they domesticated a wild boar by mixing it, and this is where you start getting into the Minotaurs and Pegasuses and all these kind of mythological creatures. But they did do, and so a pig is technically, other than the fact it's still around now, it was half wild boar, half human. It's got our teeth. It's got the list just goes on and on and on. It's got our skin. Which I think is why the Muslims call it dirty meat, because they probably realise that it's sort of cannibalism. But so if you was going to have a heart transplant, you wouldn't have one from a monkey. You would have one from a pig. If you was going to have a skin graft, you'd have one from. So you can see we're not related to monkeys in that way. Not like we would be properly. So the monkeys is if we are, if the Neanderthals came from monkeys, it's way back, millions and millions of years ago. So humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, haven't got virtually anything. I know they say, well, our DNA matches, I think it's don't quote me on this, but in the 80% close to a monkey, but I think a banana has something like 78% DNA match. So you have to be careful what the mainstream say, otherwise we will all look like bananas. What about the serpentine references where the Anunnaki reptilians? No, they weren't. They weren't reptilians. Didn't have scaly skin or anything like that. So the serpentine references, they talk, for example, I can't remember if it was Gilgamesh or Gilgamesh's clone. They actually cloned Gilgamesh, I think it was. Anyway, I'll be getting to videos on doing that, where I won't bore you. But so he, if it was Gilgamesh, if I remember correctly, was trying to get the flower under some water, which was for restoring life. In other words, if you eat the flower or mix it, they didn't actually say what to do with the flower, but the flower can restore your youth. I guess that's where the fountain of youth came from, but it was actually a flower. And he gets the flower. This is all in the ancient tablet. He gets the flower from the bottom of this cave pool, and he falls asleep. Because he was knackered for travelling there, and then a snake, while he was asleep, came along and took the actual flower. So the description was, and then he died. So so a snake would obviously have been a reptile type of thing. So they don't mention, in that way at all. They talk about snakes and stuff, but there is no reference to them being reptilians. That's not to say down the line, reptilians came here and mingled with them or whatever. But no, they're not. Do you know what's on the missing pages of the Emerald Tablets? No. $1 million question. There's other things missing as well, like the, just trying to remember what it was. There's chips on these certain stones that just missed the most valuable information that would have nailed it for us. And you got to wonder whether someone actually deliberately chipped it off. And that goes back to, Emerald Tablets and any tablets that have, sensitive information. Is it possible that after they were found that someone translated them and thought, oh God, That's God. Oh dear, we can't let this be seen out there. I don't know, but no, I don't know what's on them. Why do we all look so different? Different alien type genetics. So that's from TCAT. So Anunnaki created the first man, which was in South Africa. First man was described as red colour. Then they created a female, which was Pau, like the Anunnaki, blonde. Now, the idea was that them two had kids. That was the whole point of it, so they could breed and be workers. Now, they also got some of the other Anunnaki women to bear more children so that they could be a lot quicker in procreating. Now, the second male using one of the other Anunnaki women, they don't describe the colour, so it's totally possible he was black. Or they could have been all reddish, but breeding with a Pau woman. Now, that again, they didn't say what the second woman colour was, so she could have been reddish. So eventually, bottom line is, I think we all know that the black colour came from South Africa first. Now, there was Neanderthals there, which those new humans bred with, yes. And, there's scientific evidence of that. And the Neanderthals bred with the Homo florensis and the Homo erectuses and so on and so on. And so did the black people there. So you start getting this whole mix of, some of them died out. Some of the offspring died out. That's fine. It wasn't compatible or whatever. But then later on, the Anunnaki bred with the humans, which ended up with, in my opinion, the olive skin type, and sometimes with blonde hair. And then those olive type stroke blonde haired, possibly pale skinned humans then breeded with the black people again and some other species that were around in different locations. So that's how I think we have the diversity of colours and and all of this. If you watch my videos, I keep showing skulls and things of things that scientists have said, oh, this was a offspring of a human and some other hominid. So to me, that makes the logical sense that's why we've got the different colours. I know years ago I heard the stories that, like the Chinese people came from Mars and stuff like that, but when you break it down, this one seems far more logical than that, because obviously if they came years ago, the Chinese people came prior to the Anunnaki, they would have been a lot more civilized. They would have had, not civilized, advanced. If they came from Mars, they would have had the technology. So China doesn't have any, advanced things. Even Egypt's got more advanced things than for going back that amount of time. So yeah, you have to just go with the logic, I think. And that's why we've got the colours. AJNA, our astrological sign speaks to what galaxy they are from. So, tablet 12, or was it 13, talks about, I think it's 13, sorry, talks about Ra. When they was giving out the territories, the Anunnaki were giving out the territories, they gave them, and they calculated our year. I mean, obviously they already knew our year, but they put it down as a calendar, and they also then put down, so this was all done by the Anunnaki, and they put down star systems, which is our astrological signs up in the heavens. So Ra wanted to be the bull, which was Ra was Murduk. So he was the bull, and Ayana got given another one. We don't have those now. We call them, Leo the lion and Christ knows what. But they named all the ones. I mean, some of them we still have, but not in the way that not the same wording that they use. But so they did give us their astrological signs. But where you say our astrological sign speaks to what galaxy we are from, I don't know. You could be right. I haven't looked too deeply. I'm not into too much of the astrology, so you could be right. T-Cat, this topic is vast. Hope if we all have an open disclosure with aliens, they can tell us our true history. Yeah, yeah. When you realise who I think is running the show, and I've kind of mentioned his name a few times, Mr. Power Hungry, I think they won't want us to know, along with some of the other aliens as well that's abducting us. So, unfortunately. Oh, do you has wrote, oh, Masons. Yeah, down the line, it gets that. I mean, I'll be doing more on the Masons. I only skimmed on them on the first videos round, talking about that sort of thing, but I will be going back round on that. Oaks wrote, thanks for the references. Sitchin's work is fascinating. He is, yeah. I mean, I first found out about Sitchin on a video that he'd done, long lecture. Obviously, I knew some of the stuff that he was talking about, but some of the stuff at that point I hadn't heard of just like clicked, and I was like, oh my God, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And obviously, I wanted to double check some of his stuff that he's done. I mean, for example, I don't always blindly follow. So there's a video that I've done that's not released yet where I'm actually talking about the elongated skulls and I'm questioning them. Now, we know they're not of this earth because there's certain things that's different with them that cannot be achieved by, waterboarding or various things, sutras. There's totally missing sutras and stuff. But the ones that I've seen, Giorgio, if you know who he is, went to Malta and he handled one. I've seen other photographs and other people with them. Now, they don't seem like they're, an 8 to 10 foot bigger size. Do you get what I'm saying? I think they always seem to be humanoid size, except for elongated part of it. So, I do question things, and the video that I asked is, is there any doctors out there that can shed some light on to why they always look like they're, just from an average sort of 6 foot human size as opposed to an 8 or 9 or 10 foot Anunnaki size. So my conclusions at the moment is that, yes, Iggy were here and they were young Anunnaki. So, they could have been 6 foot, that would have been at probably the right height for them. And this is where I'm now leading to, the more I look into Egypt as well again, I think they were demigods created by the ME that the Anunnaki used to create things like, the Minotaur and Centaur and all these kind of things. So, keep watching my videos. You'll get, I'm digging deep into it. So hopefully you'll have enough info when I do it that you'll hopefully agree with me. You has wrote, I'm a Job's Daughter lifetime member. Okay. Laugh out loud. Okay. Not sure if anyone else sort of understands what that's referring to, but I won't say it unless you want. Stephens wrote, why them though? Now I'm obviously far behind on the questions. I'm sorry, I don't know what one you're referring to now. Sorry. Michaels wrote, no way I came from Adam and Eve. Technically, yes, you did. Yeah, and so did I. Now, whether it was the Adam and Eve that was over in the Abzu, or whether it was the Adam and Eve that they had when Enki had relationships with the two human women and then called them Adam and Eve, Adapa, and I've forgotten, I never can remember her surname, her name, sorry. But yeah, so there was technically two lots of Adam and Eve, but either way, we would have come from them. Michael, did they film it? Again, I'm so far behind. I'm so sorry. I don't know what that's referring to. Hi to Easy, Wave Rider. Hi there. How old is the written language? So, that's a very good question, to be honest with you. Because obviously the Anunnaki were here 450 odd thousand years ago. So technically anything they wrote that we find is could be that old. But in terms of tablets and things and the Mesopotamia, etc., you're looking at about the Lost Book of Enki. Just from the calculations that I've done, I believe was written 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, which there's a lot of calculations into why I believe that, but I think I'm about right because when you listen to other researchers, they say the same thing. So generally, the oldest tablets would have been, or the oldest writing would have been, if there is any, and and it's not been dated, could have been up to about 7,000 years old. And the reason for that is because the Anunnaki were doing what they were doing. They were mining for gold, etc. And it wasn't till they believed that the Almighty Being, or the creator of everything, should I say, wanted them to make sure that humans had Earth to ourselves, that they then started to teach us. So that's when they would have started actually doing the writings, etc. And we know that was after the flood. So, there was a couple of Shahs. So you're looking at about 7,000, 8,000 years ago, roughly, give or take. But the more normal, the Gilgamesh and things like that would have been 5,000 years towards us. So Gilgamesh would have probably been 4,000, 3,500, something like that. Blue Algorithm has wrote, if time, please address Jesus, Enki, Enlil, God, Satan, more on the Tower of Babel 2 EU connection. Thanks. I wonder if you're the person that asked that question on... Okay, so basically the Tower of Babel was created for skyships. That was the translation of what it was. Now, this was at the time that Murduk was obviously angry and he was angry for a long, long time, but this was the time that he was angry that he'd found out that Ayana had got a territory of land, and he had asked Enlil for the land, but he got turned down. So this is when he created his own sacred land. Now, they did actually go back to the Tower of Babel after it was destroyed by Enlil and the Enlilites. So this is where I think the Israelites might have been mistaken. I might be wrong, but the Enlilites went and destroyed the Tower of Babel to stop that, and that's when Enlil decided to change all their languages, etc., and mess them all up. Now, they do go back there, and this is written in Tablet 13 of the Lost Book of Enki. They do go back there, and trying to remember what happens now. Enlil and Murduk go back there, and there was some discussions, etc., about the land, because obviously this was classed as sacred land that Murduk had created, but of course Enlil, being the supreme commander, doesn't, you can't just pick land and say I'm going to have that as land. So that's when Murduk went back to his own land. If you watch my very last video, he went back to the land he was at before he got banished, and then so Jesus, please address Jesus and Enki. So Jesus came along about 3,000 years after the last writings of the Anunnakis. So Jesus was out of out of the timeline of the Anunnakis. So humans were dealing with themselves at that point, really, in the big scheme of things. Jesus, in my opinion, just from the direct translations of the ancient text that was converted into the Bibles. Now, so when I say, right, so this is the way I see it, is you've got the Anunnaki text up until possibly, 3,500 years ago, 3,000 years ago. And then from then onwards, then you've got humans writing. That's why you've got the Bibles that's according to different people. So that's why I think a lot of the Bible, the more modern stuff that they're talking about, Jesus said this, Jesus said that, etc. Even though the first Bible apparently was written 200 years after Jesus' death, but I might be wrong, and that's what I'd heard. So Jesus, the story of Jesus was written by man as opposed to the Anunnaki, which the Anunnaki did write a lot of their stuff, as you can see from the ancient text. So Jesus, in my opinion, is a hybrid. Again, going back to
message. There is a text.
Going back. Sorry, someone's just sent me a text message. Going back to the original writings, that whoever wrote the original writings before the Bible, before they added that to the Bible, and the translations. I must remember that guy. I keep saying this, but there is a priest. But watch my videos in order. I think I do mention his name and his website. But basically, he went back and translated with modern knowledge, because a lot of this is to do with modern knowledge. You can't describe an iPad back 5,000 years ago, but you can now. So he translated it. And there's many, many references that, come across as an alien abduction for Mary, how she was forced and stuff like that. That's the real sort of wording now that we're understanding. And she was taken up against her will into wherever she went up to, which was obviously a craft. But back then they didn't. They just wrote heaven and stuff like that. So she was actually abducted, if you go by the original text. So now Jesus came out in the same style as Noah and my brain's gone. Noah and Moses, when Moses was sent back after getting the tablets, and they both had. I know it's weird that Noah's ended up having a glow and everything, but Noah had a glow and had blonde hair. Now, he was the son of Enki, because Enki had his wicked way with this woman who was married to a human. So she was a human woman, and she was married to a human, Lamech, I think his name was. And when he found out that the baby, when he saw the baby come out with blonde hair like a god, the first thing he said is, "Did you cheat on me with the Aigi?" You little did. So she actually told the truth by saying, "No, I did not cheat on you with the Aigi." So because Enki obviously was getting on a bit and shouldn't have gone round and done what he done. But so the same thing. Now the baby came out with glowing skin and stuff like that, and that's this description that we have for Jesus as well. So I don't know whether or not it was one of the Anunnaki nabbing Mary, or whether it was the Greys around that time. So that's all I can say on Jesus at the moment. I mean, I could waffle on, but there's 94 messages, so I'll whiz on. Wrote, it's a combination of truths. It's interesting to study and try to figure it out. Yes, it is. I love this sort of detective work. In a long time ago, people used to say I should have been a detective. Michael's wrote, all open to interpretation. Yeah, no, I'll go along with that. But the logic there, when you got something that's talking about a building and we know where the building is, and they draw maps and things on the actual stone tablets, and there's carvings of things, then you sort of, say, okay, well, it's probably not now an interpretation. It's so there's some things that's open to interpretation, but then there's other things that you have to sort of say, okay, well, that's pretty spot on. Michael's wrote, you've seen how many variations of the Bible have been spawned from one book. Yeah. Michael's wrote, all subjective. TCAT, I've heard that the Galactic Federation are afraid of humans wouldn't be able to handle our truth. Well, so the Galactic Federation this is from what I've heard from whistleblowers and more than one person. So basically the aliens up there have a council, and they don't like us using humans to mine. So they're actually looking out for us. So they are aware of humans and what our military are doing to humans, and that's why the military that's why the military went after someone's done a 20-year tour on Mars or the Moon, or working for the Space Force. And yes, Space Force has already been going for a long time. They get sent back. Their spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it, gets taken out of their body into the cloned younger version that had already taken the DNA from, to clone this, whoever it is, ready 20 years down the line to produce a clone, so they can then put the consciousness, spirit, whatever you want to call it, back into the cloned body and then send this person back. Now, what they did do, and this is what these people were upset about, is they didn't pay them. So these aliens have heard this, the Council of Aliens, whatever you want to call them, Galactic Federation, they have heard this, and there was many meetings with the military to say, you got to stop this, you can't just keep doing this and abusing people. So they are aware of us. I don't think they're afraid of us. I've not heard that before. Michael's wrote, are we talking Star Wars history? No. Obviously, I'm talking about things that was written in stone. I'm guessing, Michael, you're anti-history I'm talking about. Stefan has wrote, is anybody here feels like they could tell me more? Really interested? Yeah. There's some really, on some of my posts, there's some really, really clued up people. Really clued up. Easy Wave Rider, what made you research it all in the first place? I think, so bearing in mind I didn't really speak until I was about 4, so obviously I had some issues. Probably still got some issues. But when I think I was about 6 or 7, and my mum read out a story in a newspaper, and it said, this is going back some years, that a husband and wife were sitting there in a coal fire. So this was obviously referring back in the days when there was coal fires in people's houses. He went out to the back garden, and the coal was, stacked up against the wall outside, and he went out there and just disappeared. And this was an older gentleman, and he was never found. He didn't wander off or anything. So that got me. And then I looked into, back then you had programs like Arthur C. Clarke's. Who remembers that? Hands up. Arthur C. Clarke's programs, just anyone that watched that would have just been amazed at the subjects. And one of the ones that caught me was spontaneous human combustion. And this was like a little 6 or 7 year old kid thinking, how does that work? What's the connection? Is there any connection between the missing man and and it just kept going. And then anything that ever came on TV to do with aliens and stuff like that, I watched. And as I grew up, I met, through someone else, I met a British military person that told me about orbs and all this kind of stuff. And long story, he was talking to me about star systems and stuff, well over my head. I had no idea. I thought the guy was lying. But it wasn't till later on I carry on doing the research, and the things I remembered that he said are actually true. So this guy really had some knowledge. So of course that kept me going, knowing that there's people out there. I always thought that if it's going to be anyone, it'd be American military. How the hell did this British guy, and he did actually genuinely work for the military, how the hell did he know all this stuff? But obviously he did, and that just kept me going. And and then when you end up talking to people like Linda Moulton Howe and stuff, you realise that they're seeking exactly the same as I am. And sometimes I've given her information that she's unaware of and stuff. And so there is a collaborative effort out there. Anyway, sorry. Frequency, what did I walk into? A pig has a pig heart, 100%. Yeah, that's from Michael. Not if you... Right, just go search what a pig has got in common, and I mean, that's human. Freaks wrote, my question is, if we evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? Unfortunately you came in late. We never evolved from monkeys, unfortunately. Well, when I say unfortunately, we never evolved from monkeys. We evolved from DNA from an alien race and a Neanderthal. And if you agree with me, go back and watch my videos. If you think that we are from monkeys, then my videos are probably not for you. So who developed the Neanderthals, T-Cats asked? Well, they would have been... So evolution's a real thing. And I know people say, well, there's evolution and creationism. Evolution works on every other species except for humans. You can check that out. Everything has a lineage past. Except for humans. We have what we call the missing link. And the missing link is from Neanderthal, Homo erectus, those type, and suddenly... Homo sapien sapien. So if you've listened and believe in the Anunnaki, then that nails that problem there. So evolution from Neanderthals would have probably came from an ape type creature, possibly. We're talking millions of years ago, though, millions and millions, to get to the Neanderthal stage. But then suddenly there's the jump from Neanderthal to human, which is the missing link, so there is evolution. Evolution happens. I mean, you can just look at fish where their pools dry up, they've now learned to breathe, or now evolved to breathe oxygen and little feet to cross to another pond that's, where that one's dried up. That doesn't happen. And I know people can go back to the original God, and my argument with God is, where he's created everything, is Hawaii. Hawaii was formed I think it was a couple of 100,000 years ago. Don't quote me on the date. But Hawaii had everything on Hawaii or virtually everything. I'll just be careful what I say there. Virtually everything on Hawaii was unique to Hawaii. So my argument is with the original creation theory is, if God created everything in 6 days and then rested, even though the Anunnaki describe it as a seventh day of rest because they were actually doing some work. But anyway, did God come back when this volcanic island popped out of the sea, which is Hawaii, and thought, you know what? I think I'll create some new plants and new animals and new this and new that. No, it didn't happen like that. Obviously, it is evolution. So that's how we can also rule out that God, the one that says that they put life on Earth and everything else, because they would have had to put life. Yes, life started on Hawaii, so you could argue, well, okay, he didn't do Hawaii, but obviously there's, microbes and everything else that was in the ocean that went up and eventually evolved. But so the point is, God didn't suddenly put those animals on Hawaii. They evolved. So evolution is a real thing. Sorry, I know I go off on a tangent. Michael's wrote, I don't think he's a real historian. I'm guessing that's me, seeing as the way you have already been talking. So I never said I was a real historian. Never ever said that. I'm a researcher, someone that researches. And now a real historian are ones that go to those universities that are funded by, yes, we all know, Rockefellers and people like that. And they're the ones that tell you what to learn, as opposed to learning what really actually happens. So no, I would never ever go to a university, so I would never be able to call myself a real historian, but I probably know a crap load more than the people that go to universities, because they force feed you. It's the same as TV. You watch TV, they force feed you what you want to hear. I mean, how many people line the streets of London and other cities all around the world with the protests to do with we all know what, and mainstream absolutely zero blanks it. So that's the same as history, unfortunately, in colleges, and I can see all these hearts agreeing with me, I'm guessing. So yeah, you can't call me a real historian, but you can call me someone that's probably got a lot more clue than Freak when C wrote they had CRISPR tech. Yeah, so CRISPR is a DNA splicing fairly new invention that actually can change one's own DNA. So yeah, I mean, they obviously had that technology. Clearly, I mean, when you read what they done, yeah, and they even did the Minotaur and stuff, so which was real. And cut up. I'm going to explain why that's real in one of my videos coming up. AJNA has wrote, the news started there was a successful pig heart to human transplant recently. The news stated, sorry. Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. But yeah, also the pig's heart lasts for, I think it's 60 years or 70 years, whereas a pig's heart, a monkey's heart, is 20 to 40 years. So the logic would be, if you're going to give someone a heart transplant, you give them the longer one. You don't give, and the one that matches. So you don't give them the one that's, So yeah, just Google the difference between, or the what a pig's got in common, and your list just goes on and on and on. The teeth, they've got our teeth, and monkeys don't, or apes don't. So anyway. T-Cats wrote, yep, the pig valve fits perfectly in the human heart. And then Michael wrote, they adapt it, it really isn't a perfect match. AJNA, we also have a DNA match with the fly. Yeah, I mean, literally, if you've watched my videos, anything on this planet, we have the same DNA with, rats and everything. So yeah, and that makes sense because obviously we all originally come from whatever it was that we came from, whether it was an amoeba or whether it was a panspermia event where someone seeded us. But either way, we've all came from the same thing. So this planet had nothing at one point. We can work that out. If we've all got the same DNA, that's just logic. So if we've all got the same DNA, and it's like the Big Bang Theory, you go backwards. That's what Stephen Hawking done. That's how he ended up being famous, because he said, well, if everything's expanded, yes, I have read A Brief History of Time, and I've picked some holes in it, to be honest with you. But what he said was, when he was in college, he said, well, if everything's getting bigger and expanding, then if we reverse that, everything's going to go to a singularity, which is a logical conclusion. And we can do the same with DNA. If we've all got the same DNA, unless something came down and seeded all of us, then we all obviously came from one source, which would have allowed us to have the same sort of DNA as each other. So whereas, for example, we're carbon-based, whereas the greys, the Zeta Reticuli, are silicon-based. And now I know people will say, well, there's no such thing as silicon-based. If not on this planet, there's not, no. So they wouldn't have the same DNA as us, which makes sense. And we would have the same DNA as the Anunnaki, because they we're not 100%, obviously, because it's diluted, etc. But anyway. They cloned, Michael says they cloned Dolly the sheep. Yes, they did, yeah. And that's, trust me, that was not the first time they'd cloned something. And, Islander, Dr. Moreau, and all these kind of things. So if they had the technology then to clone Dolly the sheep, you can guarantee that 30 years prior to that, the military were doing it. Didn't they find message. Gilgamesh's?
There is an email.
Sorry, didn't they find Gilgamesh's body? There's an Anunnaki that's in a what they call a stasis, but it doesn't. It just kind of looks more like a cardboard box. That's on YouTube, and supposedly that's Gilgamesh, tanned but pale skin as opposed to a black person. Sort of. I know I'm going about colour, and I get told off about the colour. I'm just describing the person to you. If you have not seen the video, but I have showed the video a couple of times on my videos. And supposedly, this was Gilgamesh. He's wearing a breastplate, and I think there was a sword beside him. And then if you look round, the camera pans round, I think, and there's some treasures of some description or other beside him. So, supposedly there was a few others in stasis. This is a story. There was a few others in stasis, and they got awoke, and they, were taken off by the military to a secret location. So, obviously, if my recollection, I'll have to reread Tablet 13 again. But if Tablet 13, if I'm not sure if Gilgamesh died or his clone, but they did clone someone around that time. I need to just refresh my memory on that. AJ, what if we ate spliced with dolphin, monkey, pig, and fly? Yeah, you'd end up with a right mixture. Just scrolling down. T-Cats wrote, he may not be, I'm guessing you're referring to me being a proper historian, but he is relaying a lot of research I have been pursuing. Oh, well done. So yeah, I'm glad you're kind of on my same wavelength there. Michaels then wrote back to TK saying, laugh out loud, I'm pretty sure this is a comedy. The problem is, it's the same as anything, isn't it? It's the people that, I don't know if you live in the UK, and now you've got Boris Johnson turning around saying, I wish I didn't lock people down. I wish I didn't send, this, that and the other, and the masks and this, that and the other. So all those people that said back then, this is stupid, this is crazy, were conspiracy theorists. What I'm trying to get to is knowledge. Roll on to now, you've got a lot more people agreeing with those conspiracy theorists. And it's the same, Michael, that I'm talking to you, is you have probably no knowledge of ancient history. Because if you did, you would be agreeing with me, pretty much. So because you've got no knowledge of history, you're trying to make it light of it and feel like, that we're talking crap. But when you do the research, just like the people now have with what's going on in the world, and they've realised, a lot of people have now realised that, yes, they were stupid for calling other people stupid. So I'm just saying to you, Michael, down the line, one day you may find out, you may just take some time, do a little bit of research, and you may then think, actually, yeah, I know I made fun of that guy, but crap, he was on the money or something like that. Jake has posted and said, it's not a comedy, think about it, use common sense. Thank you, Jake. It's common sense. I mean, the tablets if you've watched my videos, there's no way these tablets, hundreds of thousands of them scattered around, brand new language, talking about planets that we didn't even know existed, when these were found in the 1800s, these tablets were real. So once you realise the tablets are real, then you have to say who the hell wrote them, and everything matches, the buildings and everything else that they talk about in the statues. You have to say, okay, this is pretty accurate. We'll have to, err on the side that it's possibly real, as opposed to a comedy. Why did all ancient people acknowledge a great serpent or dragon? That's from Lou. Okay, so when you say ancient, so ancient isn't as ancient as the Anunnaki. You're talking really the last 3,000 years. That's when there would have been any references to that. Now, that is possibly, like I say, the Anunnaki seem to drop off around 3 to 3,500 years ago. So anything after that was written by man. So then you've got to say to yourself, well, why is it written by man? Is it, why are the serpents there? Is it an alien race such as the Dracos? Did they come down and, carry on masquerading as gods or whatever? I can't answer that. There's no written record as to why serpents have been worshipped. I know you could say Satan, etc., etc., but I have to go by the written word. It's like someone said to me, there was on just today on one of the other posts on one of my videos or something. He said there's 7 heavens, and I said, well, I can only go by my, written in stone, working out what they talk about, and technically there's only one heaven, and really that's space, because the stars are in heaven and we can see the stars, but obviously that means we can see heaven, which obviously we're not supposed to see heaven, so therefore the stars are in space. So I said to him, I wrote back and said, look, you can, I can show you where it refers to a heaven, one heaven. Show me where it says 7 heavens. And he wrote back saying, no, this is from different sources. And I was like, well, no, you can't. I said, that's hearsay. And he said, so you're calling the Bible hearsay? And I said, well, if someone tells you and there's nothing to back that up, and someone else tells you from someone else, I said, then yes, it is hearsay. Sorry, I know I do go on, don't I? So the answer to your question is I don't know why they worship a certain thing. Obviously, the Anunnaki didn't really refer to, I know the Bible says about the snake and everything in Eden, but when you actually read the original text, all Eden, as it was actually pronounced, all that was a place, one of the places where they had a lot of tech, and they didn't want humans to have that sort of knowledge at that point. Obviously, down the line, they did start teaching us, but back then, this was when Adam was first shown to Enlil. He didn't want him in the Garden of Eden, or Eden. So there was no snake mentioned there. Michael's wrote, laugh my arse off. Have you not read half of the questions? I'm not sure what that's referring to. Michael's wrote, great dragons and pig teeth. Michael's now telling someone else that's on the chat to wake up. Jay has wrote, what is the elite going to gain from revealing Planet X to us? Are they getting ready for something? No, I don't think they will release the Planet X. So back when I first started researching and I started finding out that they was making, and yes, China's got them, everyone's got them, these underground cities that can, hold people for 20 plus years. My first thought was, that's because Nibiru's coming round. And it could still be. It would make sense. But they could also use it for, if they wanted to depopulate the planet and then do a runner, and for the ones that still around and they want to hide, the ones that didn't die, that those underground bunkers would be ideal. So I don't think they're going to tell us about Planet X, because we will probably, people that know that there's these bunkers will try and storm them, just like the Area 51 type thing. So they're not going to tell us about Planet X. I saw a video years ago. It's not it's not. I think it's been taken off now. But it was NASA. There was about 5 people in a row in a press conference, and one of them accidentally mentioned Planet X in our system, and the others just looked at this person and gave them the most death stare. You couldn't believe it. So yeah, NASA's clearly aware of it, in my opinion, and but they're not going to tell us. Michael, I'm glad you're still here. Those black people do father a lot of children. They probably didn't have TV back then, I guess. A nice warm country. Lou Diamonds has wrote, why did the ancient people acknowledge a great serpent? Sorry, I read that. Sometimes people post the same thing again because they think I'm not reading their messages, but I have got 93 to go through, so I am a bit slow. Michael's wrote, oh my god, this is hilarious. Tim's wrote, yes, brother, very pleased to find you. Oh, thank you. T-Cat, so who removed the Book of Enoch from the Bible? Was it the Catholic Church? I don't know who did. Obviously you're aware that the Ethiopian Bible still has it. And so the Book of Enoch was technically part of the first Bible. There's some other parts in there with the Ethiopian, but yes. So originally Enoch was in the original Bibles, and then all the way down they just kept taking Enoch's name out. So you can find many references to Enoch in the very first Bible, and then the very last Bible that was written. I think they mention him once, which clearly shows that that people are rewriting history. So I don't know who it was that. So I think it's probably a collective over the years, because each version, you got King James version. So why would King James take that out unless he knew, there's a reason to take out Enoch to distance themselves from such events. So I think over the years, I think it's probably, and Romans had a mess around with it as well, took out what they wanted to take out. So not saying that they all knew Enoch and what he related to, but over time, obviously towards the last Bibles, where Enoch's only getting a mention a few times, then if I was editing that, I would have said, oh, let's just cut this person out. I don't even know who he is. So it obviously stems from the original first few Bibles that they started taking them out. But I don't know. I couldn't tell you who it was that did that. Sorry, I don't know enough on that. Michael says it was Elvis that did it. Michael's looking a bit stupid, if you don't mind me saying so. If you think my comments too harsh, don't send any hearts. If you think my comments fine, where I just called Michael stupid, send me some hearts flying up there. Where do you get Tim Gordon's right? Where do you get the knowledge from? So 30 years of research, talking to clairvoyants, talking to mediums, talking to remote viewers, spiritualists, other researchers, very prominent, researchers, ones that you probably know on TV. Crap load of books, podcasts. Obviously, back in the day, it was radio programs where you're listening to people, that whistleblowers, etc. So there's loads of hearts coming up there. I wonder why. Lots of research basically from reading ancient texts. Obviously, I don't read them because I can't translate them, but I marry them up with other people. I don't just take one person's ancient text translation as gospel. And T-Cat's replied to Michael with some laughing faces. I like these hearts flying. It's very interactive then, isn't it? I can say something and then the hearts come flying. Michael's wrote, he's watched the X-Files. Actually, now, Michael, you bring on to a really good point there. So you're not totally stupid. There's more hearts. If you're aware, there was an actual guy that worked for the American secret section of the government. I'm trying to be careful how I say this. And he one day, this is a true story, absolutely true story. He one day lost his or whether it got stolen or not, he doesn't know. But he lost his briefcase that had lots of information on different cases that he was working on. And then so he's been on Coast to Coast. So this is a genuine guy, all credentials matched. So he definitely was. And then I think 9 months to a year later, out comes the X-Files with one of the sort of first cases that was in his briefcase. So he's always wondered whether or not X-Files got his, because he was, technically a Mulder. He was a Mulder and Scully. He was Mulder. So you brought up a good point there. So that's how the X-Files, he believes, started, and kind of makes sense if someone found a briefcase and you had access to making a TV show. I mean, good God, I would have been all over that. So yeah. Jay's wrote, what will Mr. Power Hungry gain from revealing Planet X to us? Sorry, I am behind. Mr. Inappropriate, hi there, who's joined us? Who's Mr. Power Hungry? He's asked. I'm guessing he's referring to someone called Mr. Gates, maybe, or some of those other ones that work for the WHO and the elites and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and stuff like that. I'm guessing they're referring about. Michael, is no one worried this will breed schizophrenics? Roses are red, violets are blue. I'm schizophrenic, and so am I. Sorry, Michael. Mr. Inappropriate's trying to get the answer to who the power-hungry person is. Michael's wrote, it's all fun and I love the fact that he's still here, learning. It's all fun and games till people take you seriously. That's from our friend Michael. When you have disclosure, I do think our major religious are going to be able to handle this. There's the end's missing. I don't think our religious... Well, that's another kettle of fish there. The Vatican know about it. They've even got a bloody telescope pointing into two telescopes. And you know what one of them's called? Lucifer. I mean, how can the Vatican have a telescope called... Anyway. But yeah, they're looking up into space. They're not looking up into heaven to find something. They know. And these are powerful telescopes. Not just a little one in the back garden. These are ones that proper scientists use to... when they need to, they ask the Vatican to help. So they're certain religious groups are totally aware of what's going on. How they handle it with. Sorry, someone's talking to me. Put it down. No. Sorry, it's my son. Leave it. Yes, you're being naughty. So David's wrote, who in history was crucified? Funny you should say that. New research came out about a week ago where someone said it wasn't Jesus that was actually crucified, it was another person. One of the other people. I don't remember the name. I'm not 100%. I'm not fully versed on, John, Paul, all those people around Jesus' times. I sort of prefer to go back into the, alien-y type things than the more modern stuff. But so if it wasn't Jesus, then someone was obviously crucified. But now the original texts that I go back to that priest that converted, he seems to believe that Jesus was on the cross, and he's apparently shouting up to a UFO that he's looking at, according to the texts. Obviously, it didn't say UFO, but now with our knowledge, he shouts, why are you forsaking me? Why are you leaving me? Take me with you. And he's actually referring to a craft that was supposedly up there as opposed to God. That's his take on it. That's his translations. Mr. Inappropriate's asked a very good question, and I was going to get to that. What I don't understand is why the Anunnaki created us and then just left. So the reason for that is when Gauzu, who possibly either was the creator of everything or was a messenger for the creator of everything, and probably more than likely a messenger for the... But anyway, when he came after the flood, and he came before the flood, but when Anu came after the flood, sorry, I'm just being distracted by my son who's staring in the fridge with one of those fridge door alarms that you can buy from fridgedoораlarm.com. Sorry. So they agreed that they believed that it was either an emissary of the creator of everything, or it was. And so they come up with the idea that the creator of everything wanted humans to take over the planet and inherit the planet, and then... What? Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Sorry. So King Anu turns around to the three children that were there, that were all agreed that that basically God had said to them that they want humans to inherit the earth. So Anu then turns around and says, well, teach them everything up to the heavens. So in other words, teach them stuff, but don't teach them how to fly spacecraft. And that is why Murduk, that was building the space thing with humans, was a big no-no, because obviously King Anu had already said, no, don't do that. But anyway, and then Anu actually then says, then leave. So teach them, then leave. Now, people will say, well, hang on a minute, you can't leave because if they go back to Nibiru, their age will catch up with them and they'll die because of if you watch my videos, you'll understand. But at the same time that Anu was there talking to him, he turns around and says that the age process has been fixed by the elixir that they have on their planet. So in other words, they can turn back time, de-age people, which I guess is again the fountain of youth. So they did use plants, and that's what they brought over first time. If you watch my videos, you'll see that from Nibiru they brought over what they call the elixir, which helped them stay as young as they could. Otherwise, they probably would have aged a lot more. So the answer to your question is why the Anunnaki created us and then just left. It's because King Anu had actually said leave. However, when you look at people like Iana and Marduk, who are absolutely power hungry, I mean, by this time Murduk wanted to take over the whole planet, pretty much. Well, not by that time, but a bit later on when he was Ra, he wanted, or just around that time, he wanted to take over the whole planet. Would he have gone back? This is the logic here. Would he have gone back to Nibiru after everything? If you've watched all my videos, you know poor Marduk. Would he have gone back to Nibiru and not had any land, anything? Probably not, because Enlil's son Nanetta would have probably got it all. So I don't think Murduk left. The logic there, after everything he's gone through, he finally gets given, spoiler alert, but he finally gets given by Enlil at the end of the Lost Book of Enki. Enlil finally agrees to give Murduk everything. I can't see Murduk leaving. So I can see the others leaving. Yeah, they all taught us, went back, drank their elixir, and they're probably all hunky-dory. But I don't think Murduk left, and I think he's probably the one of the people that was instrumental in the Masons and who's running the planet now. David Clarkson's wrote Spartacus and many others. Not sure if that's a question, so I don't want to waffle on if you're just sort of making a point. Mr. Inappropriate wrote human greed, possibly, I don't know. Well, if you read the Anunnaki, they had greed and lust and everything else, so I think we got all their stupid traits. Just reading on. Mr. Inappropriate wrote mine gold more specifically, but it's not what I mean. Oh, sorry, I think he's replying to someone else. That's a good question. T-Cats wrote, so our work ethic is to work for others is hardwired into our genetics. It's a bloody good point, because when you, and I've done a video that's not released yet, when you break down what the MEs are, which is, I think, I mean, it could be mitochondrial extract. I'm not sure. But basically, when the territories were being set up, they went to Enki and said, right, we want a king, we want this, that, and the other. And he gave them X amount of MEs. And he said, this one's for a king, this one's for a musician, this one's for da-da-da. So he clearly can manipulate, because the MEs are the same words they used when they was creating humans. So obviously it's to do with DNA. So, it's hardwired to work for others, isn't, you're not probably far wrong there. Michael has wrote, yeah, we're all looking forward to Michael's comments. I have a friend that talks to Jesus. I think he believes he's married, keeps threatening to kidnap her. Okay, Michael, keep taking those. If anyone that's just joined has heard me read out Michael's thing, Michael seems to be taking something tonight that's making him go a bit weird, because unless your friend is really called Jesus, in which case I apologise, but anyway. Just trying to read questions. Sorry, some people chatting to each other. Mr. Appropriates wrote, Saturn isn't actually a bad fallen angel. That's just what humans have made him out to be, if real. He was given Earth from God to learn how to rule. So I probably missed the point somewhere there. Missed the question. So AJNA wrote, so if their planet is dying, that she's referring to, he or she is referring to, or some other pronoun, forgive me. It's a crazy world. Referring to Nibiru. So if their planet was dying, which their atmosphere was dwindling because the volcanoes had stopped. I know it sounds stupid, but they needed the volcanoes to spew out stuff to keep their atmosphere cool, because it's like what happened with us with the dinosaurs, with the meteorite, it blocks out the sun. So that's, anyway, sorry. And mining our minerals will save it. They have the capacity to create beings to harvest minerals for them. Of course, they would create workers to help them survive. Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of people saying, well, why didn't the Anunnaki go to, the asteroid belt? They did. They lost 2 ships. And I get a lot of people say, it's got to be easier to mine on an asteroid than it is on Earth. And I'm like, okay, so every now and then you're going to have to go and get water. So you're going to have to stop what you're doing. The logistics of mining on an asteroid compared to, on a place that you can go sleep at night and know it's not going to move. Yeah, I don't know why people even think that. But they did actually try, because obviously they didn't know Earth at the time had gold. Tim has wrote, we gave them all our gold in UK. Mr. Inappropriate, if you believe in that, personally I don't know. Anunnaki, the oldest known text form to man. They are. AJ has wrote, Dinosaur Jr. has a song that goes, we made great pets. In fact, if you look at some of the carvings, sort of more the Roman carvings and the Greek carvings, where you've got the Anunnaki, obviously they're not described as Anunnaki at that point, but you're talking sort of Poseidon and stuff. But some of those carvings, it looks like we are standing there next to these giants, and we look like they're little pets. And they did keep us naked for a long time, a long time. They didn't allow us to wear. So even when Anu came, the last time Anu came, this is after the flood. They had humans around for 300 plus thousand years, and it's described that the humans were serving, King Anu and his wife when they came in this lavish building that they'd built just for him. And these humans are walking around naked. They describe that. I'm like, that's their thing, I guess. Tim has wrote, I personally had experiences that would get me sanctioned if I told the doctors about. Okay, well, I'll have to chat to you about that. I'd love to know. And I wouldn't laugh. But Michael might. So talk to me instead of Michael. Mr. Inappropriate, one of the biggest proofs that the Anunnaki are real are in front of us, the pyramids. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we still can't do it today. I know I've mentioned the fact that China tried it in 70s, I think it was. And yes, they lost some ships, barges, because they were trying to sail these massive blokes, and they were only doing it quarter scale or something like that. And they cocked up, and they kept messing up because obviously you've got these blocks that's supposed to lock down and stuff like that. It's very complicated to do a pyramid, properly. You can't just do a Lego pyramid and say that's done. There was intricacies into it, and they kept cocked up. But believe it or not, and they know they cocked up. And what they done was they left it for a while, didn't know what to do because they thought, we've already cocked up. How are we going to continue? So they fudged it. And then the newspapers came along and said, hey, we done it. So if you look properly at the actual history, they actually bodged up, but they just then stuck stones on top of each other to make a finished pyramid. So if you go and look now, you'll see that there's a finished pyramid, but they actually, if you look deep and do the research, you'll realise that they actually couldn't do it properly, and they just lied at the end to say that they did it. So... And they lost 2 barges, apparently, that was supposedly... Because the whole point was they were trying to do it like the Egyptians would have done it back then, not with modern technology. And they lost 2 ships sank that they were trying to carry these very heavy blocks on. So, interesting. Right, okay. Blue Go Rhythm has wrote... Oh, sorry, Blue Algorithm. Thanks for answering my question. You're more than welcome. Yes, the priest you mentioned is Paul Wallace, the fifth kind on YouTube. Okay, I've not actually seen him other than once on a radio, and then I went and checked him out. So I haven't actually seen what he looked like, I don't think. So for anyone that's interested in Jesus, go look at Paul Wallace's website, or the fifth kind apparently on YouTube, and see what he's got to say for himself if you're interested in Jesus side of things. I don't know what else he talks about. Obviously, I only know from that, but he may talk about other things. Mr. Inappropriate wrote, no on earth can humans build such a complex triangle, builds that precise. No, I mean, God, I mean, in the UK it takes us 2 years or 5 years, from where an ex-girlfriends of mine, they quoted 5 years to repair a very small bridge in Essex. Very small bridge. I mean, literally, it was a train bridge, but it was just a road going over it. 5 years. And this is just a road bridge, small one. And the pyramids, if you believe mainstream, the Great Pyramid was made in 20 years with no infrastructure of roads, stopping at night because it's dark, obviously, and feeding hundreds of thousands of these apparently slaves, which they weren't slaves, we found out later. And then we're not even talking slaves at that point, because there was no real humans around, because it was just literally directly after the flood. So there's only a handful of humans, so we know the Anunnaki fully made the pyramids. Mr. Inappropriate says, with stone that can't be cut by modern technology today. Well, limestone the limestone that they used for the outer things, but the granite, yeah, absolutely. Some of that granite stuff, you need diamond saws and all sorts of stuff to cut the granite blocks that they used inside. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to cut it. And they supposedly cut it with some sort of string and sand to use as used it as a saw and a sand there to keep sprinkling sand on to cut. And someone did a demonstration of that on limestone. And yes, a very long time. You're talking days and days to cut one side of one massive block. But it can be done, and a hell of a lot of string because it would keep snapping. But yeah, but the logic there would be, obviously, if it's taking that amount of time, you would need hundreds and millions of people to do it, to get it done in the 20 years timescale. So again, it wasn't done in the 20 years timescale. They don't actually say, the Anunnaki don't say how long it took them to build, which is interesting. Normally they say things, but they didn't mention that. But okay, just scrolling down. AJ has wrote, I think the council has its favourites here on Earth. They try and speak to them, but most go crazy. I think what AJ is referring to is other aliens trying to let us know certain things, and they do, the Pleiadians do and stuff, in our sleep, instead of abducting us. And of course, some people then think that they've heard the voice of God, or that they're crazy. So yeah, certain people probably couldn't handle that. AJ's wrote, from that, the knowledge overwhelms them and disrupts their spirit. And then AJ's wrote, oh my God, I keep kicking myself out of the live. No, you don't. You just get bored of me. AJ's wrote, I suppose the council didn't want me to speak on their favourites. Tim's wrote, because it's the truth. It found you, dude. You are 43 years old. No. Question mark. That's from Tim. No. Tad older than that, Tim, unfortunately. Even though my kid sounds young, he's got special needs. Julie's wrote, I think you're highly intelligent and a great researcher. I trust all the info you share. Well, Julie, if I could send you a little heart, I would be doing it right now. I don't know how to do that, but thank you. That's really nice of you to say I'm highly intelligent. I'll take that and throw that in Michael's face. THMO has just sent me a rose. Thank you. Julie's wrote, you've been called to do this work. Possibly. I mean, I believe I came across two little greys, and it was after that. I won't bore you with the story. I probably said it already a few times, but and it was after that I was in Tunisia on my own in a business meeting, business thing there. Quite a few years back, and after that I thought to myself, did they, I'm still 50-50 on it, but if I was right and they were there, I was paralysed and everything, and it's the only time it ever happened to me. So, but anyway, if it happened, if they were there, then in my head, now I know that you can signal in your head a UFO to fly and be seen. I don't know if you've seen people like Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer. He takes people out into the desert and tells them to look up and all concentrate and ask for a UFO to appear, and lo and behold, a bloody UFO starts flying around. Email message. There is an email. So they can read thoughts. Obviously, they're not like us. So I sometimes wonder, did they visit me for me to start talking out? I don't know. I'm probably being stupid now. Now I'm standing like Michael now. Tim's wrote, what about the Mandela effect? Anatomy changes. This shows evolution in humans' history happening right now. Yeah, I mean, if it works two ways, really. So I hear what you're saying, but if we are jumping from timeline to timeline, where our spirit is, to get the Mandela effect. So that's, I don't know if people know what the Mandela effect is, but I'll just briefly say it just in case you don't. It's where you remember something like the Karate Kid. I always remembered his banner on his head, his bandana, or whatever you want to call it. I always remembered it as red. I had a massive poster. I stole a poster from a back in the day. I was a bit of a naughty boy. I stole many posters, film posters, because I'm into films for different reasons. But from bus stops, I used to go around with my mate with Allen keys. This is going back in the 80s. And we'd pull up and I'd jump out with an Allen key and I'd start unscrewing these bloody poster things from on a bus stop and then nabbing the poster. Massive posters they were, absolutely huge. And I had a few of those on my walls, and one of them was Karate Kid, and I swear it was a red bandana. But then when come along now and everyone says it's a black bandana, and I'll start looking back at pictures, and bloody hell, it's a black bandana, or white bandana with a black symbol on it. And I was like, wow, I always thought it was a red symbol. But so that's the Mandela effect. So you could be right, Tim. Just scrolling down, a few people replying to each other. Sorry, just please don't tell us. AJ's asked in Mr. Inappropriate, please don't tell us you're a time traveller. Ice Cream has wrote, hi Ice Cream, what's your take on hallucinogenics and people's experiences with other realities? I think it's true. I mean, if you, I wouldn't suggest it, because, sometimes you can get addicted, and sometimes you see things that you probably don't want to see, and sometimes, you conjure up things that you don't want to conjure up, and I'm not on about real things, I'm on about your brain, just like a dream, will will give you an impression of something that's there or whatever, and you can end up the stories of people trying to kill themselves because they've seen something after taking a hallucinogenic. So, but the reason why I say I think it's a real phenomenon, I think, is because what it does is it relaxes the pineal gland, which then allows your spirit that's there, that joins with that, to move freely. So in other words, it's a bit like an out-of-body experience, and we can go as far back as the native Indians, when they used to use their sweat lodges, and they did that for a reason, because they wanted to get into a state of almost like a coma state, but yet also with sort of a druggy thing going on. So then and they see their loved ones, they see their spirits of their loved ones, and you can really only do that with your spirit, unless you're somehow lucky enough to have vision that can see ghosts. But and then the stories go back to Egyptians, obviously, when Ra. I'll be getting to that actually very soon on videos about the afterlife, because obviously Enki turned round to Ra at one point, or Murduk, and said, no one can be brought back from dead. But then he started to look into it. So I'll be doing videos on that. I do think hallucinogenics can work, but at the same time, you can also think that you've seen something. So you'll need to have a strong enough mind to know the difference between you making up something and it actually being there for real. Mr. Inappropriate wrote, pigs are the closest things to humans. We have actually successfully done a heart transplant. Yeah, someone mentioned that earlier. Yeah, I mean, why we don't use pigs, I've already covered why pigs are close to us more than monkeys for sure, but why they don't use pigs more on things, I don't know. I did look into why we're not using monkeys. I think 2016, I did a lot of research into why we're not using monkeys for all the things that we use pigs for, skin grafts and all sorts of things. And do you know what the actual answer was as to why our closest apparently relative, we don't use monkeys for moral reasons? That is it, moral reasons. Or, let's be honest, and this is my conclusion, it's because we're not that close to them, and pigs are more closer to us. So, moral reasons. Can you believe that? That's their answer. That was every, when I bring up, and yes, I do research more than just Google, and when I bring up these institutions and say, why are we not using thingy, that was their answer, moral reasons. So, yeah. Okay, just scroll down. Mr. Inappropriate says, I think he's talking back to someone, but unfortunately, I'm a realist. I believe in what our true history says, but I don't believe in any time travelers or that crap. Thank you for for that. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult with time travelers. I mean, like I say, in my opinion, I think the military have the ability to do it only because the biggest known one would have been the Eldridge, USS Eldridge, which is the Philadelphia experiment. So, there was enough whistleblowers, enough family members that came out and said what they'd done. Nicholas Tesla and Einstein actually supposedly went to the shipyard and gave them some pointers on how to do the electrical stuff, etc., etc. So, if that was true, then they would have, by God, they would have carried on trying time travel. They wouldn't have stopped. The military won't stop at anything, really. Just scrolling down. Mr. Inappropriate wrote, our true history, that's me. Yay! Did you see SpaceX UFO sighting that they tried to hide from us? No, I didn't. Wow. Okay, I'd love to see that. Because I always wondered what would happen, because the Chinese are kind of, on the moon and on Mars when they send these probes, they don't really mind too much whether or not someone sees the images before they get doctored, I've noticed. Especially their first probe onto Mars a few years back, they basically let everyone see everything. Google's probably taken those images down now, but back then you could see structures on, and there was a lot of talk about that. So I was wondering what would happen when SpaceX got involved with UFOs. I was wondering how he'd play it. Obviously, he has to be careful because although as rich as he is, he's not daft. He's really clued up on what's going on with the other elites. So he has to be careful and watch his back if he said something out of tune. AJ has wrote to someone, yes, I see your old soul. What are your birthmarks? Good question. So that's to do with the reincarnation. It's good to see AJ's clued up there. Not everyone's birthmarks are exactly to do with their reincarnation, but some are, and I'm guessing AJ's trying to work out whether or not that matches the old soul that they have. Peach is still here. Hi, Peach. Thank you for staying this long. It's nearly 2 hours. The problem is when I do 2 hour these live chats, when I try and download it off TikTok, to save it, it always gets corrupted somehow. So I've no. That's why I do hour ones generally. Randall Carlson is doing a major pay-per-view about Atlantis this month. Well, hopefully my video comes out before his, and hopefully mine is right. And if his video concurs with that, then I'm a happy person. If his doesn't, and you watch my video on Atlantis, I'm sure you'll still agree with me. I hope. But obviously, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I think I'm pretty much there. Hello to SLYERX. I won't try and pronounce that. Sometimes I try and pronounce these usernames, and sometimes they're not even real usernames, so forgive me. Blue Algorithms wrote the snake symbol in modern medicine too. The Rockefellers displaying their agenda. Do you know, the funny thing is, they do, don't they? They flaunt it in our face. You know, the Denver airport's a huge one, you know, with the Masons and the doves and the people in gas masks and all that kind of stuff. They flaunt this stuff absolutely in our face. Yeah, you're right. They hide it in plain sight, really. Sweet Stahl, I can't read the rest of it, has sent me a rose. Thank you. SYL has wrote, do you think there's something else is hidden away from people, like other world inside our planet? So you're referring to the inner Earth. I believe there's probably massive caverns underneath Earth, because obviously if you look at how a planet would be formed, it would be rocks hitting rocks hitting rocks hitting rocks. So over billions of years, these rocks obviously stick to each other, and, you know, go round and round and round, which creates the momentum to give it a shape somehow. I'm not an expert on that, but obviously if there's rocks hitting rocks instead of just one big lump suddenly appearing, unless obviously that's broken off of another planet, but either way, you would have probably rocks on top of rocks, which could create humongous caverns underneath. Now I could go on, but that's 55 messages, but generally there's enough whistleblowers for me to know, you know, and even Admiral Byrd talking about the inner Earth and stuff like that, to believe there's definitely an inner Earth with creatures, not necessarily aliens, creatures in there, plant life, things like that. If you're interested more on the inner Earth, look up Emery Smith. Take what he says with a pinch of salt, because he knows far too much for someone that's, you know, the military have a thing called need to know, and they only tell you what you need to know. That's why the more modern presidents don't know about aliens and stuff properly. It's a need to know. But this Emery Smith, who is really just a I can't remember exactly what his description is, but let's just say he's a doctor. He knows all about Stargates. He knows about so much. But Emery Smith on YouTube, if you're interested in I can tell you some others as well, but I find him quite interesting. Salvastor has wrote, could you please go into more detail about the source or creation? Well, see, the Anunnaki talk about the creator of everything. So now Gauzu, if he was the creator of everything, Gauzu appeared to him twice. I've only covered it once so far in my videos, but Gauzu was shown to him prior to the flood, and he said he came from Nibiru as an emissary from Nibiru, and he warned them about the flood, and he warned them that if they go back to Nibiru now, they'll die. So roll on after that, they find out that there was no one sent from Nibiru, so they all came to the conclusion that it was Gauzu was either the creator of everything or an emissary for the creator of everything. Now roll on a couple of thousand years, and Enlil on his own at night has a vision, a dream, that Gauzu appeared again. And this time, Gauzu warns him, I'm being very brief here, but warns him of an almighty war that the likes that have never been seen before anywhere. This is pretty much what he was referring to. And lo and behold, so when he woke, he thought to himself, is this a dream or anything else? Lo and behold, roll on, everything that this Gauzu said came true. The war and everything, all the people that he referred to and everything. So, you've got to ask yourself, was Gauzu a messenger? Was it just a dream? So if we take the stance that he was the creator of everything himself, his description was white hair, white beard. If he was an emissary, could he have just took the form, shape, or just so happens to look like the man with the white beard? But bearing in mind the Anunnaki, when they first came here, before they got old, had white hair and white beards. So that's why they didn't find him out of place when he first turned up and said he came from Nibiru. That's why they believed him. So the creator of everything, they do also talk about spirits, the Anunnaki, and ghosts, or dead spirits leaving people's bodies. So if there's a connection between the spirits and the creator of everything, like people now believe there is, I don't know. I'm still on the fence on that. I've got no connection between an almighty God and spirits. Yes, I know there's different planes of existence, and obviously once you get to the highest plane, which none of us really know what the highest plane is, we can all speculate and guess and ask clairvoyance and stuff. But that top plane, is that where you deal with God at that point? I don't know, but I know the lesser planes you don't really deal with any almighty being. So because it's in stone. And these characters from Nibiru know a lot more than us, and they're a lot smarter than us, and they've been around a lot longer than us. Because they talk about creation, then you have to say, okay, maybe they're right. Then you roll on to the little greys when people have asked them, is there a God? They say there is creation or source. So I don't know whether it's a white man, a guy with a white beard or not. But both the Greys and the Anunnaki both seem to think there's something bigger than us. That's really all I can tell you on that. Obviously you can read the Bible and interpret what you want, but that they only get their information from the original tablets, really. Unless they bumped into a creator of everything themselves after the Anunnaki left. I don't know. So I don't want to be too flippant on the Bible, but the original Bible, we're really talking about the Anunnaki as opposed to one almighty being. I mean, the Elohim is the actual Anunnaki's race name, so and that's in plural. So they were talking about that, but down the line, did they get it mixed up, and then start adding a single one because they came across a single one? I don't know. Sorry, waffled on that. Chris Carter had the inside knowledge with the X-Files. Definitely, that's from Mark. Yeah. So you heard me waffling on about the guy that supposedly was the real X-File dude and lost his briefcase. Yeah, I mean, some of the things. Even, I still recite, I can recite some of the episodes that, like, bang, he really is on it, especially the last season. And then they even show us TR3B in the last season. So Chris Carter really is really clued up. You're right. Absolutely. Have astronauts visited Planet X then? What do they do there? I'm not sure what they do there. That's a good question. Supposedly, our military sent up these small, and I can't remember the names, but I have done a video on them. These small Challenger type craft with this certain new technology, which is the technology can be referred to, and so can the actual craft. In fact, a news station managed to catch one of these little craft coming into land at one of these bases. And because it looked like a spaceship craft, like the Discovery Channel, Challenger, those kind of things, the news reporters went over to the military and said, what's that? And they said, none of your business. And they said, well, where'd it go? None of your business. Well, and basically they got blanked, but they did film the thing landing, so we know it's for real. But going back to Nibiru, supposedly these, I think it's don't quote me, 13, something like that, went up with this new technology on to try and nudge Nibiru out of the way, so it won't cause too much effect when it comes around and passes Earth. So I don't know. I've never heard of anyone going to Nibiru from here. I know people's gone to Zeta Reticuli. That was Project Serpo, but I've not heard of people going to Nibiru. I don't know whether we'd be welcomed or not. That's a good question. I don't know. Depends who's the king there, I guess, at this point. AJ's wrote, many people were crucified in those days, not just Jesus. Yes, that's true, yeah. Well, am I that far behind? Peaches wrote to Mark, was Chris Carter the one that found the briefcase? I mean, that guy seemed to think if he didn't find it, he was given it. That's what that guy seemed to think. What about Tommy Robinson? Silver Stages wrote, what about Tommy Robinson and Telford? Do you know, the funny thing was, I was a bit like Michael, I don't know if you listened long enough, but there was a character on here, Michael, that was poo-pooing everything that I was saying. But, you know, I didn't know who Tommy Robinson was. All I heard was newspapers bantering his name around. And for those of you that don't know, he's a guy that stood up for people that were getting systematically raped in certain locations by certain groups of people, ethnic groups of people. And he was standing up for that, but the police sort of appeared to have turned a blind eye to what was going on, and then they made Tommy Robinson out to be the bad guy. Now, back when I didn't know about Tommy Robinson, all I'd hear is the newspapers saying he's this, he's that. But unlike Michael, I took the time to learn who Tommy Robinson was once I realised that he, you know, wasn't going away in the newspapers, and I watched all his videos. Read the newspaper articles on him and realised that newspaper articles were lying. So then I realised that this Tommy Robinson was actually just a decent guy that unfortunately was trying his hardest to give out information. And then that is another way I learned that newspapers can manipulate absolutely anything. You know, like an innocent conversation, they will, you know, edit out and everything else. So we cannot trust the mainstream media. Stones has wrote, where is your proof of any of this outside of what you read to us? Okay, so tablets, ancient stone tablets called Sumerian cuneiform. This is where I end up, because I'm guessing you're not a believer. So there's these things called ancient Samarian cuneiform tablets. I'll be quick for everyone else that already know about these. They were written in a language, the very first language. They were found in the 1800s, hundreds of thousands of them all over Mesopotamia. They had a particular language on it that we didn't know. It was the first language ever. After that language, we can work out that Aramaic, Babylonian, etc., all followed from that language, so we know that language is real. We know that the tablets are real. Those tablets are talking about the things I'm talking about. Obviously, they don't talk about the more modern things like little greys and stuff. That's my knowledge, but the ancient knowledge is all in tablets. So, you know, that's it really. So there is proof, 100%. Someone's told me to stop. Mama, at True History Stop. Why? Because I'm getting tired now. I need a drink. What? AJ sent me another 30 roses. Wow, what have I done to deserve that? Maybe I should start telling jokes. Jay, when was the last time the Anunnaki came to Earth? Are they banished forever by Anunnaki? No. Bottom line is, last recorded documentation of the Anunnaki really was about 3,000 years to 3,500 years ago. They wasn't banished. They were asked to go back to, or told to go back to Nibiru. I have a feeling some of them stayed. Uh, Blue algorithm. Paul Wallace, the fifth kind, misses so much of this, but it's great from the religious perspective. Cheers. Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm not the religion side of it. I have avoided as much as I can. But when I heard him talking, I was like, wow, that's very clever. So anyone that's just joined, Paul Wallace, fifth kind, look him up if you're interested in sort of the religious. He's a priest that has gone back to the original texts, just like I try and do. TM wrote, not history, but what happens when you die. Thank you. Yeah, I do answer these questions. Donations in a pot. No, I'm joking. When you die, bottom line, very briefly, because I have said this on some other live chats, and all my live chats, not all of them, the ones that I can fit on YouTube are on YouTube if you're interested, along with my videos. And when you die, you got pretty much three things you can do. One is go to the next plane. Once you go to the next plane, that's it. You cease to be you. Two, you stay around here until you cross over to the next plane. And when I say stay around here, it's literally here, wherever they can move in an instant anywhere, but they're here on Earth, basically, or on Mars, wherever they want to be, they can be. And if you think of them, they will come there and then. That's what I've been told by many, many clairvoyants. Anyway, and the third thing is, if you're unlucky and you get caught in one of those loops, that you end up repeating certain actions that you did at one point or another, and you don't realise that you're actually dead, and you just keep, going through a door or whatever it is over and over. That's the three things that I'm aware of that can happen when you die. What do you think, Zay has wrote, what do you think about the story of the Anunnaki and then the fallen angels, true corruption of man? But basically, the Anunnaki, the Aegi, which are the younger adult Anunnaki that were on Mars, came down. I'm just being very brief here. Came down because they were upset because one of the Anunnaki was getting married to a human woman here on Earth, and over on Mars they had no women whatsoever, and they got angry, and they didn't even have any respite over here. So Anzu, who we believe, when I say we believe, I believe, from my research, was classed as Lucifer. He set up a revolt with them to come down and take human women, and that's the fallen angels. That's why. Yeah. See, again, when you realise that angels isn't winged creatures, angels is just an Anunnaki messenger. That's the actual translation. But when you break it down, it's more like a guard or an officer or something like that. And then you've got a hierarchy of the angels, the archangel, and some of the other angels. So they're like commanders and captains or whatever. So that's all a fallen angel is just an Anunnaki that basically did something that the Anunnaki didn't want them to do. So that's, oh, my battery says I've got 20% left. So yeah, they didn't really corrupt man. They stole women. Over a period of time, everything was forgotten, and the Aegi were allowed to keep the women, which is quite sad. But yeah, that's a fallen angel, and then obviously they had offspring, which become Nephilim, which is kind of weird because they're also technically demigods, but obviously they weren't from Enki, the real god. So only the gods were classed as demigods, which was Enki. But technically, the Anunnakis weren't all gods, weren't gods at all. So technically, the Aegi's offspring, even though they were Nephilim, were also demigods because none of them were real gods in the first place. Anyway, that's just me waffling. AJ's wrote, in my original timeline, the Karate Kid's bandana was white with red writing. Yeah, I remember it as red, but go look now and you'll see it's black, and it's apparently always been black. And I'm like, no, can't be. How dare they do this to me? Jamie wrote, what's the truth about the pyramids? Anunnaki built them after the flood as a beacon using crystals. Top capstone wasn't solid gold. It was made up of various different things. It's all in the Lost Book of Enki in tablets form. Beam came up, shot up right up into space to help the Anunnaki know where to land, because the original place that they were all landing was covered over in mud and silt and everything, so you couldn't even see the buildings anymore because of the Great Flood. So the Anunnaki wrote all of that. So we know that the pyramids were literally built by it, and the Sphinx was built by or with the face of the person that built it, Murduk's brother, basically. However, down the line, Marduk deliberately... Sorry, my son's just popped in again. Marduk deliberately... yes, Clark. Deliberately defaced the Sphinx and put his son's face on it, which is interesting. So that face has been changed. Jay's wrote, determined to get you to 10k likes, 1 million tapping like mad. So interesting. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, yes, I can see it's now at 13k. Thank you very much. I didn't know that's what actually that meant with the hearts. No, you're not going in the fridge. No. Not fridge. So I'm probably going to have to shoot shortly, because if I don't get up, he's going to be bad. Thank you, everybody, for getting it up to 10. People talking about that.
Thank you.
Why do we always have the same birthmark on our arm? Yeah, I've heard of that. I need to look into that. I haven't looked into that one. Marcus wrote 10k. Well, most men, anyway, that little dot on the left arm. Yeah, I've heard that. I've not had the time to look into that, but I will do that, because I'm interested in the birthmarks because of the past life regression. So, Kat has wrote, are the Anunnaki coming back to this planet to take over? No, they wouldn't do that unless a different king has taken over and they decide that they want Earth. But if it's still King Anu, and there's no reason why it wouldn't be King Anu, because it was only like 3,000 years ago, and he was still young then, so sorry. So they wouldn't come to take over Earth anyway, because their long lifespan gets a bit messed up, so they would have to keep going back to Nibiru. So no, I don't think they want our planet, and they found it very hot when they first arrived over in Mesopotamia. So I can't see them coming back, and they are talking to our military now anyway. Apparently, whistleblowers have said they've seen these 8 to 10 foot Anunnaki. S4, Andy's wrote. I'm guessing you're referring to Groom Lake. Not really a question, so I can't answer that. But Peaches wrote that dog needs either feeding or walking, I think. I've got some dogs. Unfortunately, my eldest daughter dumped them on me and then moved out with her boyfriend. I'm sure you all know what that's like. Rifters wrote, what is reality? Can't answer that. My take on it is we are in a universe that was accidentally created. This is just my take. I might be way off. Accidentally created by scientists from another galaxy, obviously, or universe. Just as we're trying to do with the Hadron Collider. I know we're trying to create the God particle, but who's to know what's going to happen? So we could end up creating another little mini universe that is mini to us but massive to them. My battery's now flashing. Hundu Mill has wrote, what do you know about the Aboriginal Australians? Not as much as I would like. I know some of their stories that they pass down, and of sky beings and stuff like that. Not as much as I like, I'll be honest, and I'm only saying that only because my battery is going to die, and I will try and when I go round to different countries, because after the Anunnaki, sorry, my little boy. Yeah, all right, just wait. Once I've done the Anunnaki and then Rome, Egypt, all the things after that, I was going to get round to different countries of what happened to them individually, like Stonehenge and Ayers Rock and things like that. So I will get to that, and then we'll do a lot more research on them from what I already know. So I apologise for not answering your question. Salvastor has wrote, if the elixir fixed the Anunnaki's age problem, do you think Enlil and Enki's sister still alive? Yes, I do. Now, the problem is she was, described when Anu last came here, and this is probably about 9,000 to 10,000 years ago after the flood. She was described as old and wrinkly and hunched over. So roll on another 7,000 years, give or take, to when they kind of left. That's a long time on Earth. So could she have died, in between then? I mean, they didn't write that, but I don't know is the answer. I mean, it depends on how good that elixir is. If it really can turn back, someone that old, then I'll take some of that. No, I wouldn't actually. I wouldn't want to live on this earth much longer. It's turned into a horrible place at the moment. That's very nice of you. AJ's wrote, I do hope you have a creators fund so that the gifts get donated to your fund. I have. They do the gifts. I get. When someone sends a diamond, from what I understand, TikTok take half of the amount, whatever that value is, and I get the other half. And then from what I understand with the diamonds, you can transfer that to your bank. However, the gifts, I've not, I don't know whether that's the same thing as the diamonds. I've not studied TikTok that much to know. I just thought the gifts were like, hearts and stuff, and were just nice things that people send us. But obviously, if people's paid for them, I would actually hate to make people lose money. So tomorrow I will look into what that is. I did try and click on the Creators Fund. It was greyed out at one point, because at the beginning I was talking about more mainstream subjects that will get people banned when I first started, but I then changed the channel and converted it into Outer History. So I don't know whether they will actually allow me to have the Creators Fund. I'll go back and have a look. You need to check out the Creative Society. There is a woman that claims she is Anunnaki. Has the just trying to find the rest of that. I can't see any more to that. Okay, a Creative Society. There was a woman who claims she's Anunnaki. I mean, technically, in my opinion, certain people with RH negative are the ones that definitely came from the Anunnaki and the humans, as opposed to humans and humans. But that's just my take on it. I heard NASA is hiring priests, Alien Connection. Yeah, they're hiring people as well to try and do what would happen if you meet an alien, if aliens came here. But me being a researcher and remembering stuff, I remember back 80s or early 90s they did the same thing. So don't think it's a one-off. They're obviously doing it. It's more of a probably PR exercise for us than it is them actually genuinely doing that. So they definitely did it before, I remember. Oliver's wrote, I'm guessing it's where did the Anunnaki land first time? A place called Eridu. Well, actually they landed, depends who you're referring to. If you're referring to Alalula, who was the very, very first Anunnaki on Earth, he landed in Eridu, which basically have a look on a map for Eridu. and you'll see that's where he landed. And then when he got the other Anunnaki, there was 50 then that came over after he was there, and they landed in some water near Eridu. The craft can actually go on water, so they landed on water and they had to wade. This is all written from the craft to the land, and then they set up. Eridu was one of the first locations they set up, so it kind of makes sense that they landed there. AJ wrote the cute thank you from your hype man in the background. Yeah, sorry, yeah. So, yeah, he's coming up. His birthday soon. He's coming up to 20, but he's unfortunately, well, to him he's fine, but his age is more, I don't know, 6 or 7. What happened was when he was born, they used forceps and they pierced his skull, and blood was gushing out of it, but he also had club feet. So nurse ran off with him. It was a cesarean. I have 2 other kids that were absolutely fine. I mean, they are, one of them was top of the class, top of everything, far better than I was. I was a dunce at school. So I know my kids were, both of them were fine. So anyway, so I don't know if anyone's interested in this story, but they finally brought him back. They wrapped his head up with bandages and everything. And over the years, we realised that obviously there was something not quite right with him. So we took him to doctors, and they tried all sorts of things. They thought he had Prader-Willis syndrome. They tried everything. They've done biopsies on him. And at one point, I turned around and said, "Listen, I think it's to do with you piercing his skull, because his hair doesn't grow there, and sometimes it actually bleeds." And then finally, one doctor actually took some photos of it, but didn't bother doing anything else after that. But I Googled after I realised that she took the pictures, and I thought, hang on a minute, I can't be the only one. And lo and behold, bang, Googled, and these particular type of forceps they use, because obviously he was in a funny position and they struggled to get him out. I was there, so I saw him panicking. Lo and behold, other people have got the same issues where they are behind. No, put that down. Where the children are behind because of a pierced skull. The problem with that is, as he grew up, because he was never classed as autistic, because they could never put him in a bracket. Sorry if I'm waffling. Because he was missed out on various things. I'm not saying benefits, but respites and these certain locations that they take, other kids to help them. He totally missed out because he's got no label. He's he's labelless. Yes, I know, knowing what we know now, and researching it and everything, I could take them to court or whatever, but, it was an accident. They tried their best. Obviously, I would never use those particular type of forceps if this continuously happens. That's the one thing I am annoyed at. And the other thing I'm annoyed at is that, surely if I worked that out, they could have worked that out, that it was that's caused it. But anyway, so he's in the kitchen now, trying to get as much food as he can. Sorry to have waffled on there. I shouldn't have done that. Olive, people were saying hi to you, Clark. And when he was born, we called him Clark because we was watching Smallville, and we thought he's a little Superman. Salvatore's wrote, "Love your knowledge, please continue." Oh, my battery is literally on its last legs. AJ's wrote, "I appreciate you being vulnerable with us. You're a great pop." People are saying hi, Clark. Yeah, you can have some milkshake in a minute. Just wait. All right. Oliver's from Sweden. Oh, bless you, everybody. And thank you for the likes. So I'm probably going to have to shoot because, as you can see, if I don't go over there, he will eat us out of house and home. But thank you, everybody, for taking the time. I might try and do another one tomorrow around the same sort of time, 6 onwards. But thank you for all your excellent questions, even to Michael, who's long gone now. But if anyone listens to this on YouTube, if I can get it on there. Thank you. Yes, have a great day to you too, Salvador. Thank you. And Peaches has sent me some light. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to Married, who says thank you. Thank you to Peach, who says thank you. I do like to acknowledge people. I'd hate, if I sent a message, I would hate someone just to skip past it. So, PlayStation, you mean?
Yeah.
Hang on, I'll sort it out in a minute. All right, I better go, everybody. Thank you so much, though. I've enjoyed tonight, and I hope you guys have too. All right, take care, everybody. You're welcome. Thank you for your time too. Bye. Bye.
Bye.